All right, team. Welcome to the Boulder Athlete Podcast. I'm Josh, and I'm hanging out with Jason Grubb today, who just punched his ticket to the CrossFit Games for yet another year. How many years is this now, Jason? You've been doing the
This
game?
is amazing, remarkably, my 8th ticket to the games.
8th time. Okay, that's really cool. You've won it 6, and I think this year, now that you've moved up into the 50 to 54 division, it's going to take, I don't know, a miracle for someone to knock you off of that spot.
Hey, we don't
Not to jinx you, but things are looking solid.
they're gonna make me work for it. There's no free lunches, so I do have confidence, I have momentum, this is good, but I know my guys, I know my competition. I've got my pulse on these guys, and they are fierce. They know who I am. They've watched me for years. They hire coaches to figure out how to beat Grubb, so they're out there. If I keep training Boulder athletes, it's not easy to fight off Boulder athletes. These are resilient, well-trained athletes, which is very tricky because if you want to know what I do for training, it's right there. There's nothing addition. You know me. I don't do anything but what's written. I almost feel obligated. I feel accountable to what I write. Fingers crossed. I'd like to punch a few more wins, but it won't be easy. As always, I'm not taking the jinx. Nope.
Okay. Well, let's see. So for all those that have tuned in or checking this out, here's the meat of what we're going to get into. One, we'll do a little bit of a recap of DelMar, which Jason and I were just there along with a number of other Boulder athletes. And yeah, we had a great experience and some highs and lows there. And so we'll unpack a little bit of that. And then what we're going to get into, the kind of the primary conversation, will be the upcoming cycle. And so I won't break the news on what that is called or what we're going to get into. Jason, you've got all the context there as you're working through that as we speak and assembling that cycle, which I'm really excited for. I will say that's going to kick off on May 11th, so here in just a couple weeks. And so I know folks are always interested on what does that cycle look like? What's the thinking and rationale and just kind of the mad scientist mindset that goes into those things. So I'm excited to get into that.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm excited to talk about that as well. It is the most important thing that we do as in our company is provide super relevant, high quality programming that makes us not just fit human beings and not just competitive athletes, but keep us in this thing for the long run. So I'm constantly balancing, how do we maximize our capacity, our abilities, as well as our duration. Like I fully intend to see you out there with me when I'm, 68 years old and you'd be 58 or something, whatever our age gap is, you're 50. That's what we want to do, right? We want to endure that long, but one step at a time. So like you said, you and I were out there on the competition floor last weekend, and what a special thing it was to be competing with you and rooming with Justin. So the three of us were in a Airbnb together at the first in-person semifinals in Masters athlete history, in CrossFit history. Like, we made history out there, bro. No Masters athlete has ever stepped foot in an in-person semifinal. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of it like that. I hadn't even framed it that way in my mind, but you're right. That is really cool. I was so wrapped up in the mission, which was like, just point me to my lane, tell me to work out, and then judge, keep me on the rails. Don't let me start thinking, just keep me going. And yeah, which unfortunately I did not complete the mission. The mission was to punch my ticket at the games and be in the top 3. And while that was totally within my reach, it's not how it played out. And yeah, we can get into those details. But here I am now staring down the barrel of the online semis coming up here next week and trying to gear myself up for, hitting that reset button and being in a good position to go at least give it my best effort, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and it's not a last chance qualifier. I wish it was. I wish this was really like, hey, everybody doing in affiliate semifinals at this point has already attempted to punch their ticket, and this is the last chance. That's not the way this season has shaped, because this is the first time they've put this together for Masters athletes. But it is what it is. And you have 15 slots available. Is that the correct amount?
Yeah, yeah.
In
That's the
affiliate?
number in my mind. I'm pretty sure it's
Okay.
15
Yeah.
online can qualify.
Your division it doesn't give anything away for free either. Like you have to earn every single point in there. The competition in your division at Legends, from my perspective, was incredibly fierce. You may not say I was stressed out for you. You know, I went into the last day with a slight lead. I needed to avoid absolute complete disaster to punch my ticket. And I prefer that over the space where you were at, where there was a person fairly locked into first place, and there were four athletes within 4 points of each other, vying or trying battling for two placements after that, the top three for years go. So, you're experiencing the fatigue of the weekend that just comes with the stress, the physical stress, the mental load that you carry, and the fierceness on a chipper workout. This isn't if they give you a sprint at the end of this thing, I think you walk away from it because that's you give Boonstra something explosive, something sprinty, a real race to the end. Like this could be, but they surprised us with this final workout that was, this absolute brutal chipper. And now you've got four guys out on the floor looking at each other, counting each other's reps. I actually talked to one of the that was just ahead of you. I don't remember his name, but he has a beard. Was it Kyle? Is that his name?
Yeah, Kyle Ruth.
Yeah. Yeah. I met Kyle today at Magic City. He was out here. I was chatting with him and he said, here was his plan. And you know, because you experienced his plan. He got to the devil presses. So this workout, for context, guys, was 60 toes to bar, 50 heavy wall balls with 30-pound wall ball for guys. Brutal. 40 box jump overs, 30 devil presses with 60-pound dumbbells, and then a walking lunge to finish. He told me his ultimate goal was to get to the devil presses and get 3 reps on the competitors he needed to get 3 reps on and not let them get near his 3-rep minimum. That's all he did. He was watching you the whole time to ensure that you were never less than 3 reps behind him. And I mean, that's playing the game. This is the
Yeah,
game.
smart.
And on a chipper like that, if you know what the points are, you know how the game goes. He was able to get there and then hang on, which is remarkable because hanging on during those 30 devil presses, as you know,
Was
was
hell.
those were heavy.
Yeah, because 3 reps, I mean, it took a long time to do 3 reps. Those especially as you crossed, like, the 15 rep mark, every single rep was a battle. So I was
One rep max. Yeah.
yeah, one at a time was, like, a max effort. It just the level of fatigue you'd accumulated over the weekend and within that workout. For me, oh, man, it was like a come to Jesus moment every time I approached those dumbbells, like, "Get back down there. You gotta do this again." And what was challenging, especially there, was you don't know where anybody else is at, around you. You're kinda looking for some judges' hands to go up on who might be getting close and who isn't, and you just see, a lot of suffering going on, and you're experiencing that yourself, and you're trying to talk yourself into picking it up and going again, and that was that was a tough moment, and I know that you've witnessed this. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I've experienced it before and seen it from others where you come to the realization in the workout when you know what you're doing isn't enough. And you kind of know going in like, hey, I gotta beat these guys. And when you realize I'm not it's not happening, I'm not doing it. That's a gut-wrenching moment, and to keep yourself super invested in the workout and to continue on and finish, with the kind of integrity that you would be proud of is hard, and so I definitely had that, pushed it right up into the end, and then to walk away and then realize, "Oh my gosh, I was 2 reps away from the next placement," like so my big takeaway from this weekend, which I knew coming in, but this was another big proof point, is literally every second and every rep matters. Every
It's
single second and every rep
yeah.
matters. And where the seconds came into play for me was in workout 3, and as I was headed to the finish line, somebody just snuck right past me, just a few feet before I crossed the finish line. And that one placement credited and they earned it. And it credited them points that I didn't get, and those points were critical in the way that the weekend wrapped up. So just cannot afford when the competition is that strong and that close You cannot afford a single second to give away or a single rep.
This is true. And you can't learn that lesson in a gym. You can't learn that lesson training with your buddies. You can't learn that lesson doing an online semifinal. This is where, this weekend I'm at the Magic City Games, and there's a lot of athletes here where this is actually, for many of them, this is their first big competition. And they're not going to win, or a lot of them that I'm talking to, they know they're not there to win. And so what they're walking away with is competition reps,
Mhm.
competition experience. There's a difference between, for example, talking to a small group of people or having a microphone talking to a large group of people. It's a different experience. Everything sounds different, feels different, looks different. No one's making eye contact, yet everyone's making eye contact in a large group. In a small group, you can, and that's what it's like between training in the gym or even killing yourself in the gym in a competition prep versus getting on the stage and having to figure out what that's like. So it's not just competition reps, but competition lessons like what you experienced out there. Oh, that, in my division, Joey Hushman, good friend of ours, Boulder athlete, in event three, same event you're talking about, event three, he and I are battling on this barbell complex, and it comes down to the race to the finish. And I move to the finish, and he races. I got him by 2/10 of a second. They had to they did a video review to determine who actually won the workout. And hindsight's 2020, of
It was
course.
truly a photo finish.
Photo finish, and I'm fighting for my life. I'm not giving points to anybody out there. I don't care if you're a friend or a foe. It doesn't matter. I'm not giving away points because I am in it for me in that moment. Turns out, same thing for Joey, 2/10 of a second, a foot touching a line in a photo finish. He had a bobble on a jerk that I saw and was like, "Don't bobble." He bobbled. I got this. I get across the line. That was 4 points that would cost Joey a trip to the game. Well, a trip. Now he's going to attempt it at the in-person semifinal. So very similar experience, which again, I want to go back, of course, because you're my buddy. I want to go back and like grab that Josh, just go back and I'm like, bro, you're gonna have to hurry on this. You're gonna have to drop that bar and run because this other guy, he's gonna come out of nowhere. And I literally watched it happen. It was like I was watching an accident happen in slow motion. I see you going, and I'm like, oh no, no. But because I know the cost of that. I know the cost of one guy. You did all of the work, except, and it just cost you in this little blink of a second. 4 points stolen and gone.
And
But it's okay, Josh. You're gonna punch your ticket this week, bro. I got full
yeah, I
faith.
hope so. I hope so. This is not gonna be easy. Like, this division, I mean, every division is competitive, right? Every division. So anybody can say what I'm about to say. But this division just got harder, more people aged up, and there's a bunch of really, really competitive guys that are now in that 40, that are 40 and have just, popped into the young side of the division age range, and only 15. And I can think of a handful of guys that I know are just like won the open, won quarterfinals right there at the top. And so you assume those guys are going to do well here in semis, but the other thing that this really points to is when you have athletes that are so similar in terms of their capacity, the programming makes a huge difference. The programming really makes a big difference. And so, like Brad Alcock, who I got to know a little bit, and he's going to be on the podcast, and I'm really excited about it. Man, what a tremendous dude! Just great guy. I root for very few people in my age group, but he's one of those guys that like you could easily root for him because he was just, yeah, so genuine and humble and one hell of an athlete. But he locked up first place very convincingly. But he's a very different athlete type, and honestly, on paper, I wouldn't have said his athlete type would do really well. I think he's got great capacity, and so I would have assumed he would have done well for sure. I had him standing on the podium. I didn't know where he'd be on the podium. So just to say that he was especially impressive. I'm looking forward to having him on and talking through that as well. But man, the programming, it really does make a difference when you've got a bunch of athletes that are incredibly capable, but kind of unique in their own skills and strengths. And so it's really about
Yes.
what's going to draw that out and, yeah, who's going to execute at a high level. And then it also points to, and I give credit and kudos to those athletes that just really executed at a high level. Kyle Ruth, man, he executed his game real well. he and I kind of similar in build and athlete types. He executed at a really high level. When I evaluate my own performance, man, there was a handful of like kind of critical things that you just can't afford to make those kinds of errors and expect to be, on top of the podium. So really good learnings. It was super humbling for me. Was I really disappointed? Yes. Am I a little
Course.
less so? I don't know. I mean, I'm getting over it, but I definitely walked away with some critical learnings that I hope I can apply, at this next stage of the season.
Yes. I mean, they're locked in. These lessons are locked in. The experiences are locked in. I was thinking about, my experience at the CrossFit game. First time I went to the CrossFit games, I had a chance. Well, I'll say it this way. I had a chance to stand on the podium the first time I went to the CrossFit games.
Mm.
I was close enough. I was within reach. I needed to beat two guys. I needed some math to work, but I needed to at least beat this one guy. And so we got into a bar muscle up thruster workout. I had no capacity at the time for this kind of volume or doing something like this at the end of a workout. And it was clear. You mentioned earlier that watching it just slip away, but then keeping the integrity of the workout. Like I'm going to finish strong, even though it just slips. There it goes. It just went. I
Yep.
broke. He didn't break. It's game over. It's game over. Yeah, that has this. It has this feeling. It's really funny because the final workout at the next CrossFit Games also had bar muscle ups, and barbell snatches. It's just a different style workout, but also had bar muscle ups. And I remember thinking on that one, like, I'm never coming off this bar. Like this lesson was, I'm never coming off this bar. And I had to beat I was 43 when I won my first CrossFit Games. I thought my prime, I thought I'd missed the opportunity. I didn't qualify at 40. I didn't qualify at 41. I went at 42 and I did okay. I ended up getting on the podium after a failed drug test by another athlete. So post-mortem, if that's the right word. And then I'm 43. I'm just going to give it a go. And some of those lessons learned in the first one, I applied on that second one, never letting go of this bar on this last one. I even got away with something, Josh. On the last bar muscle up, my judge had actually turned away to start running to the finish line to catch my time. And my hand straight slipped right off the bar. And so I was up on the bar, laying on the bar with a hand not on the vertical or on the horizontal bar, which was, I'm not intentionally laying on the bar. My hand had slipped off. I got it back on. I demonstrated lockout. But if she's looking right at me, I would have had to do another rep because you can't generally
Rest
lay on
on
the
bar.
bar and adjust. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a fluke. It wasn't really I didn't get away with something. I had won the games without having to win that event, but it was just one of those situations where like, I don't care. I'll I will die on this bar.
Yeah.
I'm not coming off the way I did last year. But the training does matter because we're all getting smarter. Athletes are getting smarter. The competition is getting more fierce. And we think about what was delivered to athletes in DelMar from a test perspective. I think about when I was 40. So I'm 50 now. Let's go back 8 years. Maybe I'm in your shoes 8 years ago, 9 years ago in kind of an age group, semifinal. I don't see us doing, let's call it event 3, this crazy amount of reps with a barbell at 205,
Yeah.
right? I think that the test is elevated. Even now, like my test as a 50 plus athlete doing that entire test with 185 was insane. This was crushing athletes. 150-pound sandbag for 25 consecutive sandbag cleans in event number 2 for you, 30 reps. This is unheard of, you know, 5, 8, 10 years ago. So the tests, I believe, will continue to increase as the skill levels of these athletes increases. I mean, the guys that are entering your age group now are the James Hobarts. These are multi-year games athletes. Rich is going to be 40 in no time here, right? Rich Froning of all people.
I hope not.
He's he's going to get there.
It's getting close, I'm sure.
Josh Bridges is in your age group as well now if he were to compete. So the overall skill level is going to increase. The demand of the athlete, the need to be this much better is going to continue to go, which is why we do what we do in training. We do some crazy amounts of volume in our training, Josh. It's not by accident. This is
Yeah.
my leeway into what we're about to get into in the next cycle, actually.
Got it. Let's do it. So we were physically very well prepared to take on these tests. And so no doubt about that. I went in with a ton of confidence and looking on paper, I was like, man, not wheelhouse workouts, but I feel really confident and really capable. And so I credit that naturally to all the training that we'd put in. But then you got to layer on really good execution on top of it because that's certainly a factor. And that's where my learnings will come from. So let's talk about this next test. We're going to kick this off on May 11th. You'll share the name of that here in just a moment, but let's get into kind of the focus areas of what we're coming up on in terms of this cycle, things that you're thinking about, some fun specifics that we should anticipate within the cycle, which you and I just
Yep.
discussed before we kick this
Yep.
thing off, which I'm now looking forward to a bunch. So take it away, man. What do we got?
Yeah. So the next cycle, we really struggled with a name for this cycle because we could get really cute with it, or we could just try to get really descriptive. And so we went the descriptive route. So this is called the Divergence Cycle or Divergence, however one might want to pronounce that. And what that means is that this is really the only time in the year where there is a significant split between the elite track and the rest of our tracks. And for those of you that are new with us, we have multiple tracks. We have the elite track, which is for really international level competitive masters athletes. We have the compete track, which is aimed for athletes that are looking to compete even on a national, sometimes international level, but it's a little bit more controlled volume, a little bit more focused on longevity. So you might pop up to the elite track to prepare for a specific event that you have coming up, but you might live in the compete track because the volume is just a little more digestible track, which is the best of boulder athlete training, but in a condensed 1 hour time frame. Like you are an athlete, you got an hour, and that's all the time you have. So you get what you need in the core. It's the core of what we do, is what we think of that. We have a scaled version of that for those athletes that have a little less experience. We have a minimal track, which is the core track with a pair of dumbbells. So we get really creative with a pair of dumbbells. If you're traveling in a hotel, or in a garage gym, you just can't get out. You got a pair of dumbbells. We can get you cooking in an hour with a pair of dumbbells. Trust me. Then we have the capacity track, which is a second session. Last year, we actually had the elite track and the second session in one track. But after the games last year, we realized a lot of athletes like this second session capacity track because they might have an extra hour a few days a week. That's what the capacity track is. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. It's an hour session where we're focused primarily on zone two with some accessory work that is consistent with the theme of the day. For example, Monday's theme in general with Boulder Athlete is pulling and getting below parallel. We have Olympic lifting in there as well. So our accessory work has us reinforcing pulling movements and getting below parallel reinforcement with hips, knees, ankles, core type work. And of course, we have one other track, the affiliate track. For those affiliates out there, we have 40 affiliates, right around 40. Some of those being in trials, some of those being, actual affiliates that have committed to work with Boulder Athlete, and they are getting consistent methodology, similar recipe to what we're doing on each day of the week. That's just if you're new here, okay? So what we've got here for this cycle, it's a 10-week cycle. It takes us from May 11th to really the week before the CrossFit Games. Our CrossFit Games, Josh, starts on July 21st, which is a Tuesday. We will begin that tape or that deload about a week in advance. And we'll get specific around that for games athletes at that time. But essentially, the entire Boulder athlete group will be going through this 10-week cycle that has 4 weeks of a push phase, 1 week deload, another 4-week push phase, another deload, which is such a great way to train. I can push for 4 weeks. And by the fourth week, I'm like, are we ready to deload yet? Because I'm ready for a
Yeah,
deload. And
definitely.
then we do that. It's sustainable. It helps us, allows our body to bake in all of the work that we've put in. You can't just push from now into the games and expect to be healthy at the games. There's dosages here, and we need to pull back in order to actually grow. So everyone has those rhythms to the cycle, but the divergence comes in this. The elite track is doing games prep work. This is the highest volume where we're going as close as we can to our maximum tissue tolerance without overdoing it. Like we ride a line here, and those that will be following the games track at this point, you are pushing your training, further than you do the rest of the year. This is unsustainable training over this next, 10 weeks. This isn't something you would ever want to do on repeat, but it is really fun. I mean, I love it. It's my favorite time of the year because we actually really get to do some dirty, gnarly, fun things. That doesn't mean it's always heavy. It doesn't mean it's always brutal, but we do get some really spicy nuggets in here. Okay. The rest of Boulder Athlete, and this is really the core of everyone else, we're moving into the off season, right? And we're not training for the games. We're moving into a season that allows us to really rebuild. Another idea we had is if we were going to call all of the other Boulder Athlete tracks any kind of a name, we would call it a base camp, right? This is where you're rebuilding that base. Elite is peaking, the core compete in all those tracks are accumulating they're rebuilding that base. So they're rebuilding their skills, like higher skills, ring muscle ups, bar muscle ups. They're reinforcing their basic skills, pull ups, chest to bar, toes to bar, handstand push ups. Going back to higher skills, redeveloping handstand walking, freestanding handstand work. As far as strength goes, we're going back to basics on strength. Not a lot of fancy stuff. We're literally looking to get much, much stronger. We're taking some of the overall volume off of Olympic lifting to focus on positional work. So you'll see lots of positional work in our Olympic lifting, our snatch, clean and jerk, and our jerk work. And when we say positional, it means we've got some, snatch pulls. We've got snatches from the blocks. We have hang snatches. We have some overhead squats built into this as well to reinforce those movement patterns. Essentially, if you were thinking about starting fresh, this is the place to start. We're going to relay that foundation, getting back to the basics and still being smart about it. Pushing for 4 weeks, like building progressively for 4 weeks and then enjoying a deload. I'm also making this so that, Josh, if let's say that, I'm training in the gym and I'm pushing towards the games, but I'm training with some guys that are not pushing towards the games, we're still going to have there's enough overlap that we can have some fun together on a Saturday. We also want to feel that community. I don't want to feel like, all right, you guys are over there,
Doing your thing.
reinforcing your back squats. Yeah. And I'm over here, like, I'm doing Linda or something. We're going to give everybody some treats along the way that we can do together that are necessary for the games athletes and very much fun for all of our other athletes, because we are a community. We're cheering on the games athletes, but also cheering on the athletes that are like, hey, no, we're rebuilding and we're going after 2027, which is going to be a good year.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Man, there's a lot there. One thing that comes to mind is like, this is a great opportunity, public service announcement. If you're just joining Boulder, it really depends. One, if you're joining Boulder because you want to get really serious about training for the games as you're leading up to it, yeah, you're ready to take on some volume, and the elite track is definitely going to be the appropriate track for you if truly you are en route to the games. But if you're joining Boulder and you're not in that camp, I would not start with the elite track. I would definitely start with the core or the compete track and probably even scale them to a certain degree until your body acclimates to that new volume. I know for sure, and I've talked about this plenty of times on the podcast, I started in the middle of a track and I was doing the compete track at that time, and it was absolutely smoking me. And I was too
Yeah.
stubborn. I was like, well, I'm doing it all. And wowzer, that was a shock to the system. And so I would have been much better off slowly building up and taking on that volume in a much more intelligent way than I did. So if you just joined Boulder, welcome. You are in a great spot. Now, slowly build, start with core, build into compete, and don't feel like you've got to check all the boxes there right out of the gate. Take a bit of a slow build, and I will tell you, you will accommodate and acclimate to the volume. And now, this is for me personally. I'm doing the elite track every day, 100% of the things in the elite track, and it feels great. And I'm not broken down. And so it just took some time to get there for sure. But
Right.
yeah, trust that your
Isn't that
body will
crazy?
acclimate.
Yeah. This is such a good point, Josh. I at times forget what it took to get to this point. And that now, when I think, I'm going to start games training on May 11th, my mind just shifts like, okay, it's just slightly increasing the knob a little bit on what I've been doing. But really, yeah, for someone that's just coming into this is like, the first turn on the fire hose is still super strong, right? That as soon as you crack that bolt, that water is coming out at full speed. So that's kind of what it's like. And I recommend for all athletes all the time, they ask me, how should I start? Well, if it takes you 3 to 6 months to work into the compete, and if you're an elite athlete to build up to that elite, That's about right. Like that's fair. You do have to listen to your body and pay attention to, how your body responds to this. And also, there's a responsibility in training, and with this level of volume. And while we deliver this volume in the most responsible way possible, I believe, by having the color coded zone, so this workout is a moderate intensity. This is high intensity. This is all out. Like we are prescribing the intensity along with the dosage. But even with that, the responsibility you have as an athlete is self-care that goes along with that. It's eating appropriately. It's getting enough recovery, sleeping enough. Let's say you have a newborn at home and you're trying to do the elite track, you might be setting yourself up for failure, right? This is tough. I tried to qualify for the games when we had a newborn. I was like 20, or I was 40, and we had a newborn, and we weren't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping, and I'm grinding myself down in training like crazy. I'm not surprised it didn't work. It just didn't work. I wasn't sleeping. That's the very area of life I was in. So that you got to pay attention to all that stuff. I want to talk about a slight. So what does it mean? What would be the difference, for example, between the elite track and say even the compete track when we have a divergence like this? Like what does that even look? What would be an example of what that looks like? That's a question that I might have. One example would be if you're familiar with training with Boulder right now, you know that Mondays might have ring muscle ups to kick it off with. We got pulling endurance. Let's just call it a ring muscle up Monday. The games track might have ring muscle ups, but it will likely be paired with something that interferes with those ring muscle ups. You and I know very well in competition, we rarely ever get to just rip off ring muscle ups fresh, right? It's at the end of the quarterfinal workout, or in competition, it's 5 rounds. And by the fifth round, you're wondering if you've got one ring muscle up in you. So we train with interference. And that's very much elite track games training style. But if we think about going back to the basics, and that's where we'll be headed as we head into the divergence track or the divergence cycle, the compete track will go back to building ring muscle up volume without interference. So again, it's reinforcing this idea that we don't always have to create interference with our ring muscle ups. We don't always have to create interference with our barbell lifting and in our conditioning. This is the time when now we can just work on our raw ring muscle ups, build that capacity, build that skill. And then down the road, we'll add interference. And by interference, we mean 30-pound wall balls mixed with ring muscle ups. That's interference. 100% interference, gross interference. But that's just an example. So for examples of what that might look like, building skills is what we're looking at on one side of the divergence cycle, and complicating or creating, not complicating, interfering with skills is what we'd be looking at on the games track. We're not doing fresh handstand walking, fresh handstand push-ups, fresh bar muscle ups, fresh rope climbs. All of those will have interference that mess with them so that we are prepared for competition.
Yeah, that's a really good kind of defining line in the sand as you're thinking about these two and where they will diverge. It's a clean takeaway. Interference. If you're training for the games
Interference.
in this stage, you're going to have a lot of interference. You're going to be working skills and working with heavier loads while dealing with interference and managing that. And more in the base camp, kind of compete and core tracks, building that base, but less interference.
Less interference. It doesn't make sense to try to perfect your ring muscle up while under fatigue. Makes some sense to really perfect that ring muscle up. I was one of the demo athletes last night at the Magic City Games, and they did bar muscle ups, and I'm proficient at bar muscle ups. I'm good at them. And Adrian Bosman afterwards came up to me. Adrian Bosman, of all people, came up. He said, "Jason, those are the smoothest ring muscle ups, you know, that can be done." He said something like that. And he's lying because his bar, did I say ring? I meant bar, whatever I said, bar muscle ups. His bar muscle ups are gorgeous. They're just he floats. He's like a magician because he was an acrobat. That's kind of what his background was.
I didn't
And
know.
so I tossed that compliment right back at him. I was like, well, the best bar muscle ups in this room are yours. Because you got to throw a compliment back at him. That was very sweet of him to say that, but that didn't come from doing bar muscle ups under fatigue. I mastered that skill on its own, and now I add fatigue so that now, I mean, you can throw bar muscle ups at me in any context, and I can do them fresh and I can do them under fatigue. That's just what we're training there. But it doesn't start there. You have to start with just the raw version. How do I get better ring muscle ups? Well, I got to get a lot of them done, but fresh. And then let Jason mess them up down the road. We can relearn once we've got them fresh, right?
That's a good takeaway and really clean and helps describe kind of the differences between those two tracks. I want to get into some of the specifics of what we can anticipate and what we should look forward to, or
Yeah.
maybe not look forward to. But
Dread.
what's coming up here in this
Yeah.
next cycle?
Well, let's I think some of the fun parts will be on Saturdays. I think this will be the part where it's going to be an area to highlight because this is where both tracks will converge. They diverge during the week where it's kind of but they come back together on Saturdays because we have a fairly predictable rhythm on Saturdays that tends to work really well. Saturdays are days where we catch typically a full send piece to kick off Saturdays when we're not in a qualifier season where qualifiers mess up our weekends. We start with a full send on a Saturday, and then we tend to do some skill work or a skill flow that often has bench press, some deadlift work, some handstand skill work, and then a red workout. So we can expect that again in this cycle. It's a really predictable flow for a Saturday, but I look forward to it. I look forward to going out there and giving a full send orange workout. And we call the full send workout orange. And if you're familiar with our intensity spectrum, well, people would say, well, why isn't that red? Well, okay, because red is really for max effort. We want to think red as in I'm going as hard as I can on an echo bike. And you can't sustain that very long. I mean, you can be red for maybe 3-4 minutes on an echo bike and be truly red. But if a workout is somewhere between 8, 12, 15 minutes, you might be zone 5, but this is not max effort. You're not max efforting this thing for 15 minutes. It's just not possible. So we would consider this competition pace. That would be an orange workout. So competition pace workout. So those are our full send workouts on a Saturday, but I'll point out a couple of them. Let's talk about, we talked about this one before we started
But
clicking record.
yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Before you get to that, I want to just double click real quick on that point that you're making because then it's a really interesting one, which is like red. And here's how I'm interpreting that. So you can keep me on the rails a little bit if I'm misinterpreting it. But like the Echo Bike example, it's very clear you're on one piece of equipment. You're probably doing some kind of interval. You're just interfering with the bike. That's the only thing. And
Yes.
so your focus is incredibly clear. It's easy to go red on the bike. You can't sustain it, but you're going to do some interval focus. On these like full sends, there's usually multiple elements to the workout. And so you're going to go from movement A to movement B to movement C, maybe the movement D, and then maybe there's some rounds of that. And so there is a level of strategy and pacing that has to exist. While you're still racing in a full send level of intensity, you got to be smart about how you transition and pace and so on. And so it's that element of strategy that kind of naturally
Yeah.
governs your
Yes.
total intensity, which pulls you from that red right into the orange category, where it's essentially as high as you can possibly the highest intensity you can sustain, knowing you've got a lot of work ahead of you.
Based on a duration. Yes. Another way you could think of it, Josh, is like, imagine there is some sort of a red to orange line in a distance on a run. And could actually be a slightly variable line depending on the person, but I'm going to take me for example. I could do a 400-meter run, and I could call that a red effort. I could run 400 meters at max capacity, max run. It's as fast as I can do it, but I cannot do that for an 800-meter run. I cannot run as hard as possible for 800. That's where I actually need to. Now, there's some athletes that can run as hard as they can for 800. So this is where I'm saying this is a sliding scale here.
It
But
doesn't
let's
mean you
maybe even
won't
bump it up.
get into the red eventually,
Yeah,
but it's
they'll
not gonna
get
be like
into the red, but
red from
it's
the
not
get-go.
yeah. A mile run would be something for mortals like us, not runners. I mean, all the runners listening are like, these guys have no idea what they're talking about. But if you and I are ready to go out for a mile run, we would apply a little strategy to that. There's a little pacing. I am not sprinting the first 400 on a mile run, right? We would think of a mile run as a very orange effort.
Mhm.
I'm thinking through this. It is a competition. I am at maximum threshold, but I'm not at maximum effort. I could run faster, but I cannot do that for a mile, but I can for 400, certainly can for 200. Now, one of the things that you'll see us do, since we're on the topic, talking about orange versus red, on Saturdays for For the games, I actually haven't decided if everyone's doing this yet. Maybe if you all want to comment on this one and let me know what you think. Probably I'll do it, but it's very hard. You remember this from last year, Josh. Our red workouts on Saturdays will progressively get more challenging on the Echo Bike, where we start with holding a sustained wattage for a certain amount of time on the Echo Bike. And what we're trying to do is give ourselves the opportunity over this training block to increase the duration of our ability to be red, if that makes sense. So it might look like this. Week 1, 30 seconds at 700 watts, right, for men, which is a really challenging pace, very challenging for 30 seconds. It might even be 800. I have a little testing to do, but it's essentially 30 seconds max effort echo bike, and we're repeating that 6 to 8 times with prescribed rest. But then the next week, it might be something like 45 seconds at a certain wattage. So we're trying to keep that red level of intensity, but for 45 seconds, then a minute, and we grow. I think last year we got up to 4 minutes was where we topped that out.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
that, the 4 minutes is where we're really riding this like if we had a gauge, we'd see it blinking red, orange. Like it's not red, it's not orange, but it's right there, man. And this is max. This is as hard as I can go without strategy. I'm not thinking because I've told you the wattage you have to hold. This is this is it. There's no strategy, there's no thinking. Hold 440 watts for 4 minutes. And it's the grossest stuff possible. It's really gross. But those are just examples of where we can use red workouts to try to expand our capacity in that red. And the reason we do that, like they rarely have at the games echo bike 30 seconds for time or for callus. That would be an insane event. It would be crazy if they did that. But they do combine the echo bike with other things where we are so red at the end of a workout. We are actually at max effort, but it's a duration, all this. We're looking to give ourselves that extra edge so that we can edge out someone else for milliseconds. Sometimes that's what 4 minutes on the echo bike repeats at red means, is that we have more capacity over here when it counts. Yeah.
You know what's coming to mind for me, Jason? I fear I'm about to lose this thought, but boring. Let me just say that out loud so you can help remind me if this thought kind of evaporates. I remember doing this last year with a number of people that I knew. And hey, we started at 30 seconds, went to 45 seconds, and it was just like slowly building over time. And it was like 5, 6, 7 weeks. And like you can count on seeing that Echo bike every Saturday, I think it was. And so there is a mindset to this, and you need to figure out what it is for you. For me at that time, it was like it's an opportunity every week for me to see progress and drive some evolution of my body and see myself adapt to the stimulus. And then getting reassurance that like, dang, this looked really nasty on paper and I thought this was going to be really nasty. And while it was really nasty, I actually did it. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. And so you have this like kind of reassuring data week after week after week. And I remember some folks that I was close to were like, man, echo bike again. You know, like I don't why are we doing the echo bike again? And which they were kind of insinuating like this is boring. I don't want to do that. But look, this is what it takes. At this stage of the season, this is what it takes. This is not the program. While you want it to be engaging and all of that, of course, this stage, you kind of put that aside. This is purpose. This is purpose driven programming where you need to know that you are optimizing your capacity as you lead up to the games. Like if you're having fun, fantastic. I hope that you're having some fun along the way. But fun isn't the priority. Progress is. And here's how you make
Yeah.
progress. You got to do the same things and you got to do them over in a way that you can compete with yourself. You can see some progress. You can get that reassuring data and continue to evolve. And so making that mental shift into, look, there is a purpose here. While, I would love it if this was super fun, it's not always going to be fun, especially at
Yeah.
this stage in particular. This is really mostly applicable to this part of the season where you're making a push for the games. But that's the mindset I had to get into, and I really learned to enjoy that. And where this also applies, this is not a programming specific statement, although that's clearly the example that I'm using. think of like nutrition as well. Like those who have kind of a boring diet, guess what? It's really consistent. And guess what? It also probably helps them look the way they want to look and feel the way they want to feel and perform the way that they want to perform. And so if ever you've been accused of having a boring diet, I take that as a compliment, because
You-
it's repeatable and you know what you're getting out of it.
One of my favorite business mentors is Alex Hormozy, and his one of his mantras is "Do the boring shit."
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Do the boring stuff do the boring stuff that works over and over again. And I actually saw a short on YouTube the other day, and he was answering questions from the audience, and there was someone out there, and she was like, hey, we make $3 million a year doing this in our law business, and I've actually stopped doing that. We're thinking about going into online coaching. And he was like, wait, so you stopped making $3 million a year or revenue to go into something else? Why? And she said, well, it was boring. It's kind of exciting to go into coaching. It kind of sucks. What we did is hard work. And he said, work is hard. Work sucks. That's how it'll always be. And if you get into coaching, this coaching business over here, ask these guys. They do coaching. It sucks. It's hard. What you think you want may require some work, and work sucks. You got to do the boring stuff. That the other thought when you were talking about boring, one of the questions may come up like, and this is a fair question, man, is this lazy programming? We're back on the Echo Bike. This feels lazy. We could do this on other machines. How hard would this be to program 6 weeks or 8 weeks out? This is lazy. But you nailed it on the head. This we could do a progression like this with a row. I think that would be fairly effective, very effective actually. We could do it with a C2 bike, which would be much more pleasurable, painful, but man, the Echo bike versus I'd rather do it on a C2 bike all day. But the stimulus from the Echo bike is so predictable. It's so full body. It engages so much. And we want to say it like this, they bring this piece of equipment to the games almost every year now.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember the Echo Bike workout from the games last year, handstand push-ups, Echo Bike double unders. Yeah, I think you won that workout, right?
I won that one. Yeah.
Yeah, you won that workout. You on an
And you
Echo
know why?
Bike, you were
Well, yeah,
prepared.
push-ups, but I remember I was like, "I am so freaking confident on the Echo Bike right now."
This is
We've
nothing.
done all
What was
this
it, 18
work.
cows? No big deal. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
that stuff matters. And it matters when you get to a competition feeling prepared over feeling worried. It was really funny. We were running last year, essentially preparing for a 5K. And then the games announced that there was a 5K, 2K. There was a run, row, run. So we shifted and we were preparing for that as well. And then our actual games had a 7K run. I was like, okay, well, all we got to do is do 1 or 2 7K runs because we're already prepared for the 5K. I guarantee we'll be practicing that again this year. Your confidence comes with preparation. You take that extra second of preparation before you go into that business meeting. I mean, you do this all the time. An extra moment of preparation so that you're confident to give a presentation. You're ready. That's what we're doing. We just are having to do this for weeks in advance because we have to do this with our bodies. Now, so we've talked about the boring stuff. We talked about red, and we diverged, or we swung over on this side, say, okay, here's orange, here's red. We just talked a lot about red, which is what we're finishing Saturdays with. The sexy part, now here's where we get to have fun. Okay, so we do get
Bring
to
it.
have some fun.
Here we go.
Swinging back over to this full send, let's jump in. Week 1 full send is not super sexy. It's running some rope climbs, some sandbag work. That's fun. But really week 3, I've got it up on my screen here. We're gonna do the workout Linda, which you and I, neither of us have done this for at least 10 years. 2015 was the last time I did it. Uh, I was lighter in 2015 actually than I am
Yeah,
now.
this is
So
some
I've got an
serious
extra,
stuff.
I got a couple of extra muscular pounds on me. But so Linda, for those of you who don't know, is for time. Now, this is a fun workout. This is a grinder. And we'll never see this. We're not doing this because we think we're going to see this at the CrossFit Games. It would just be logistically super hard for them to do this with hundreds of Masters athletes. But it's fun, it's a good stimulus, and it matches with what we would do on a Saturday. So that's why it's here. It's for time, 10 reps to 1 rep, deadlifts, bench press, squat clean. But the weight is based on your body weight. That's why body weight matters on this. So deadlifts, 1.5 times your body weight, bench press at your body weight, squat cleans at 75% of your body weight. So for me, I weigh 205. That's a 153 pound. I'll probably try to find the change plates so I can be precisely 153 pounds. I'm going to want to round up, but let's stick precise. This is 55 reps. Is that what 10 to 1 is? I think it's 55 reps of each of these. And I'm going to go for it. You're going to grab a group and we're going to go 3, 2, 1, go. We're going to race through this.
It's a lot of barbells you're gonna have set up in that gym.
Oh, actually, we might have to take heat.
Yeah,
That's right. I forgot the last time I did Linda. Yeah, this is 3 barbells per person.
that's right.
Okay. I'll bring what I need to. I'll bring it from home. I don't care. It's just super fun.
Yeah, I've only done this one time. I can picture exactly where I was. I don't know exactly the year, but it was at least 10 years ago. And I remember the moment I did that workout, I was like, I'm gonna do this like monthly because I
Honestly.
loved it. And I was like, it just hit everything. I had a great pump. I was sweating. It's like if I just did this all the time, I'd be the most jacked up, fittest dude on the block. And then I haven't done it in 10 years. So I am to do it
Swear, I
again.
want to say the last time I did this, I said, I think I made that same commitment. Like, I'm doing this often. If this
Yeah,
doesn't build me, what else will?
that's right.
Well, I didn't do it. Another one we're going to do. It's so after deload, let's see. Well, deload week 6 is rope climbs and strict handstand push-ups. That's fun. Week 7 on a Saturday, we'll be doing something called Fantasyland. And what's fun about this was a workout that probably hit YouTube, I want to say 2015, 2016. Again, I don't know why it didn't mean for this to be. These are the only 2 old school workouts we're doing, and actual workouts that are named. So Fantasyland is a play on the workout Fran, and it was one that you could go to YouTube, you could watch. I think Rich Froning did it in his super old barn, and he's just huge. This is just prime CrossFit. This is carnal. James Hobart is dying. Froning is killing it. His pecs are swelled. He's just a massive human being, right? But it's 21:59. So you do Fran into another version of Fran. So you go 21:59 thrusters, pull ups, 95:65 into 15:12:9 thrusters, chest to bar at 115:80 into 12:96 thrusters at 135 bar muscle ups. That's it. It's a brutal escalating peak test, 81 thrusters across 3 loads. And this is a good one. That one will be really beefy. And so whenever beefy, that's a terrible phrase. This is a really challenging workout. When we have something like that, we make slight adjustments to the other pieces on the full send Saturday because that workout in and of itself could put you in the grave for the day. You could be done for the day right there.
Yeah.
We will likely, well, we do have on that day some additional work that will help flush out the system, keep us moving, and have us heading into a rest day without any bandages or without needing a
Medical
wheelchair.
care.
But it'll be a fun experiment. It's a tremendous amount of volume. It's the kind of workout that we could see variants of that at the games where they throw some really strange things at us. But also, it's just one where, like, hey, this is a heck of an old school grunt work style. Could you even imagine ever being able to do something like this workout that 10 years ago I would have never thought this is even possible? Now, I'm just curious how quickly I can get through this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, each of those has, while I don't think they would show up exactly like at the games, there's elements and stimulus from within each of those that you just described that absolutely we will see at the game. There's always high volume gymnastics. And so that's always a thing for, while I love gymnastics, I'm good at them when I'm fresh. You introduce a bunch of interference and man, they get really different. And, then I
Yes.
have to start getting really strategic on how I break those up. And thankfully, I've learned enough lessons over the years that I'm getting better about that strategy. But then moving a heavy barbell in deadlifts, we're probably gonna see that and having to do that while being interfered with something else.
Yes.
Rope climbs has consistently shown up at the games, and you certainly don't get to do those fresh, so that's gonna be under some fatigue. In fact, last year at the games, the overhead squats, rope climbs, I think box jump overs, that was a really tough. I don't know if it was exactly that. Maybe I'm mixing 2 workouts that felt really similar, but that was a
You,
really difficult stimulus.
yes.
Yeah.
It was, and that's when we do something like a full send Saturday. I think what's a really fun practice, and that I will do. on a Saturday in particular, because the full send, for whatever reason, because it's the first thing we do, it feels a little more like a performance style workout than the conditioning piece we have at the end of a Monday, where it might be 5 rounds for something. I feel like I'm still training there. Where on the Saturday, I feel like, okay, here's an opportunity to give this a bit of a go, a bit of
Yeah.
strategy, right? I'm not just following it. So when I think of Linda from 10 to 1, or I even think of this Fantasyland, I'm certainly not doing Fran unbroken. My first set of 21 pull-ups will not be unbroken. This is where like I'm thinking through, okay, what's the best way to get through the first chunk of this? This isn't Fran in sub 3 minutes. This is probably Fran in more like 4 minutes, because I've got a second version of Fran with less reps, but more challenging pieces that I've got to get through after that. Like how do I actually get to the 135-pound thruster with something in the tank? I need to think through this. And that's something that when we have these, kind of bigger tests like this on a Saturday, chippers are mixed in. Friday afternoons are actually have a lot of chippers as well. So we can plan for those, but it gives us the opportunity to think through workouts, to call our shot. If I were to say, okay, Fantasyland, okay, if I go through here, I'm going to work through the math. I'm going to throw out there that this is going to take me about 14 minutes. I think this is a 14-minute workout for me. When you're able to practice that strategy strategically, call out your time or map out your time in your head, this is stuff that I do when I'm out on the competition floor.
Yeah.
I will think, okay, on this workout, okay, this is probably about a minute 15 per round. Okay, that's going to project the end of this thing at about the 9-minute mark. Okay, or whatever the workout is. I can develop this relationship or conversation that I can have with myself about what is Jason capable of. If this is the workout, how is he going to approach it? What's the time frame on this? And then, I mean, honestly, Josh, when I'm in competition, I feel like there's part of me that is out there on the floor doing the work, and there's part of me that's in the control center calculating all these things. Here's our expectation. Here's where we think we should be at this time frame. What is Joey doing over there? He's going really too fast. I got to keep up with him. And then commanding my body to do these things. These are all the things that happen in one workout. But a lot of that comes from practicing this in the gym, where I might be thinking the same thing about Ethan, right? Here's my 25-year-old kid that chases me down in workouts on Saturdays. What's Ethan up to here? Where's he at? How am I going to get him on this one? How did he beat me in the open on that workout? That'll sneak in there. I got to push that off so I can stay focused. Um, but yeah, I know you do this with Justin. You know, on Saturdays, I know you guys train together a bit, but it's when you have somebody there, you can role play a little bit as you work your way through these. It creates that slide competition simulation that
Yeah.
can take and can give you extra experience without having to be on the competition floor.
Yeah, that you're pointing exactly where my mind has been going is like takeaways for those that are watching and listening this is there's really multiple elements of the programming that Jason intentionally you very intentionally have crafted, which is one, yeah, the physical preparation. You go through the tests and you're physically adapting to the different levels of stimulus and all the intensities and the loads and things. And that's a non-starter. Like you have to do that. But then it is you start to develop a real strategic mindset on how you approach these workouts. The chipper, for example, that we both just experienced at Legends was a great example of like, you have to reverse engineer these workouts. You look at all of that, you go, hey, 60 toes to bar, 50 heavy dang wall balls, 40 box jump overs, 30 of these devil's presses with 60-pound dumbbells, and then a bunch of lunging. All right, well, where's the sticking point in this workout going to be? It's clearly at these devil's presses. So now you reverse engineer on how do I get to those in a way where I feel confident, I feel capable, I'm not super fatigued, and I know that I can invest the way that I need to invest. And so then okay, well, I should probably break these in such a way. I should probably do that in such a way. And that is a real skill that is not just naturally, you just have. You need to be very in tune with your body. You need to be very in tune with what's going to fatigue, how you're going to feel at a certain moment. And the only way that you can get that is by doing very similar work in preparation leading up to that. And then also applying similar strategies to that preparatory work. And it just is invaluable. And then if you can add a workout buddy or two to the mix in there somewhere as well, where then you also have to digest this additional stimulus, which is how fast are they going?
Yes.
Are they breaking there or no, they're not? Am I ahead? Am I behind? What's their pace? Don't get sucked into the trap because they're moving really quickly early in the workout. And these are all traps and bits of data and information you've got to be able to consume and rationalize and manage in a very competitive environment. And so, major kudos to the athletes like yourself and others who do that really well because it's a lot of information about your own physiology and your environment that you're taking in at once. And for some, it can be overwhelming, and I get it. And then for
Well,
some, they deal with it incredibly well.
I was thinking about one of our athletes, and I'll give him a shout out, Mike McCaslin. He was at Legends, did remarkably well, fourth place in his division. Right. I think he, I think he's both satisfied being in fourth place and hungry to be second place. I mean, who wouldn't be, obviously? But for him, fourth place. And I was debriefing with him this week, and he realized he said, I'm happy with fourth, but I was just, I just need to be able to lift 10 more pounds. I just need to be a little faster here. I need just a little more of everything is really what it'll take for him. But he realized this week that this is his second, maybe third year, if that, competing at this level. And he is in the ring with guys that have competed at this level for 8 to 10 years. And that matters. The 8 to 10 years of experience in this thing refines that capacity. Everything you just said, everything that goes on in your brain on that competition floor, all those factors, those variables, the adjustments you make on the fly, all of that comes from the dozens of lessons you've learned over 10 years of doing this. And it makes you really contextually smart in this very specific area. And we talked about this earlier. You can't get that experience without getting competition reps on the floor. And I think Mike was slightly encouraged, realizing like, okay, I'm still in the developmental phases of this. And that's not to say that I'm still in the developmental phases. I learned something at every competition. I make mistakes at every competition that I take away and I draw from. So I by far don't have this thing mastered. It just putting an exclamation point on what you just said. And I think about Mike in that he is satisfied. And I tell you what, with a guy like that, if he's consistent in this thing, continues to learn from that experience, his maturity will grow in that competition level. It's not just the training. It's not just, it's everything. Shoot, Josh, it's everything. And then a little bit more. That's all it takes. It's as simple as that. That's all.
Well, what I just heard is Mike McCaslin needs to be more mature, is what I heard you say, Jason. So
You
that's a
know,
great soundbite.
we,
I'm going to send to him.
we love this guy. And yeah, I think I've given him a shout out a couple of times in the past couple of weeks on different podcasts. I expect a comment below. I'm sure there's going to be a comment on this one from
Oh,
Mike.
yeah.
And brother, we appreciate you.
Yeah, buddy. Shout out to Mike, dude. I would have taken fourth place. I got fifth, so you got me. Jason, this has been a great discussion, man. And we've definitely veered off in some different directions, and I think we both anticipated, but hopefully those that are watching and listening found some good nuggets in there, no matter where you're at in your competitive season, whether you're pushing for the games here and semifinals or you're kind of moving into base camp mode where your season kind of hits reset and you get a, just downshift a little bit. And I know how much appeal that part of the season also has. Um, but yeah, Jason, as always, man, I appreciate you making time, giving us some insights on what to expect. And I know we're going to have a bunch of fun little nuggets and some grindy pieces, and all of which are going to be very purpose driven for this stage. So I'm excited.
It's going to be fun. It's a good season. I love a shift into a new cycle, especially after a much needed deload, which we roll into this coming week. Taper for some athletes that are competing in affiliate semifinals, deload for everyone else. I know that for me, I'll be tempted to test out these in affiliate semifinals for the athletes that will be doing that. I have to stick to a fairly strict deload. I really need a deload. My body needs to heal and recover from the push we've had. I'll run through a little bit. And as we prepare for in-affiliate semifinals, I believe this will be released as right around the time in-affiliate semifinals are about to start. So for those athletes that are doing those, maybe you're listening to this as you're driving in to do your semifinal. Hey, breathe deep, breathe easy. You're well-trained. You're prepared for this. Have fun. And if you do need any support, reach out to us. We got you.